They tracked the wolf through the forest, but what they found was wearing their friend's skin and smiling. It began with blood in the snow. A fine red mist across the underbrush, torn branches, deep paw prints gouged into the frost-hardened dirt, the kind of tracks too big for any wolf this far south, the kind that left silence in their wake. Nathan, Eliza, and Tom crouched low under the naked limbs of pine and birch, weapons drawn, breath visible in the brittle morning light. They followed the trail without speaking. They didn't need to. Their minds were still back at the cabin, where Jared had screamed. And then gone silent. It had dragged him out into the woods. The door had been barred, no windows broken. Yet somehow, Jared had vanished, leaving only shredded blankets and a single fingernail embedded in the doorframe. Nathan had seen the shape outside, just a flash, long-limbed, low-slung, and fast, something vaguely wolf-like, but taller, smarter. It looked back at him before vanishing into the trees. Now they followed it, not out of vengeance, out of dread curiosity. The forest grew darker as the sun began to dip. The trail twisted into old logging paths, then into deer runs, then nothing but brush and bramble. There, Eliza whispered, pointing. The clearing ahead was eerily still. Snow lay smooth and untouched except for a strange dark hollow near the center. Tom stepped forward. Is that a body? It was. But not Jared. A stag lay eviscerated. Its chest cavity opened like a dissected specimen. Its heart had been removed. Its antlers snapped and scattered like discarded bones. Symbols were carved into its hide, spirals and eyes and something that looked almost human. Nathan stepped closer and froze. A sound came from behind the tree line. A crunch. Footsteps. Then a voice. Familiar. Wrong. Guys? It called, just beyond the trees. Guys. It's me. It's Jared. They turned as one. He stepped out from the shadows, smiling. But it wasn't Jared. The thing that wore Jared's skin moved like a marionette with tangled strings. His eyes were too wide, his grin too still. The clothes were torn and soaked through with blood, but his skin, his perfect, undamaged skin, gleamed in the dying light. Eliza, it said, tilting its head, you dropped your necklace. It held it out, her mother's locket. Jared hadn't seen her drop it. No one had. That was when Tom raised his rifle. The thing moved faster than thought. It was on him in a heartbeat, fingers stretching, nails curving like bone knives, its jaw widening, cracking at the corners, teeth elongating. Tom didn't scream long. Eliza fired. Once, twice, blood sprayed the snow. The thing stumbled, twitching, then it laughed. You never liked me, Tom, it hissed in Jared's voice, but deeper, layered, as if something else was speaking through the mask of him. But I wore him better than he ever wore himself. Nathan pulled Eliza back as the creature advanced. They ran, hearts hammering, down the slope, into the deeper woods where even the air felt thinner. Behind them, it called. You tracked the wolf. You found me. Now I'll track you. And it was laughing in Jared's voice. They didn't stop until night fell, until frost clung to their hair and exhaustion made their legs shake. They found an old ranger outpost, locked, empty. They barricaded the door, loaded their guns, sat in the dark with their backs to the wall and their ears tuned to every whisper of wind through the trees. Eliza was crying softly. Nathan stared at the window. And then they heard it again. 3 knocks at the door. Then silence. Then Jared's voice. Guys, it's me, let me in. It's cold out here. But they didn't move. They didn't breathe. Because Jared had died last night. And the thing out there was still smiling. Continued, they tracked the wolf through the forest, but what they found was wearing their friend's skin and smiling. The knocks stopped, the wind returned. Then a soft dragging sound across the outer wall, like claws on old wood. Nathan pressed his ear to the boards, heart pounding. Don't, Eliza whispered, it wants you to listen. But it was too late. From the other side of the wall, an almost inaudible voice whispered, inches from Nathan's ear. Knock knock. He stumbled back, gun raised, breath shallow. Then silence again. Tom's rifle had been torn apart like plastic. Nathan still had 4 rounds. Eliza had her pistol. Neither of them felt like enough. They waited, frozen, until the blackness outside thickened into something unnatural. The moon had risen, pale and cold. The trees stood still. Eliza finally spoke, voice shaking. "It's not just wearing Jared, it's learning him." Nathan looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean it knew things," she said, "things Jared never told anyone. That locket, I dropped it in the bathroom 2 weeks ago. Jared was asleep, but that thing knew. Maybe it's reading our minds." "No," she said, "worse, it's watching from the inside." They tried not to sleep. But exhaustion was a slow poison. Nathan drifted off near dawn. When he woke, Eliza was gone. The door hung open. Snow blew in across the floor. He called her name once. No answer. Footsteps outside, pacing, light, human-sounding. Then, a shape at the window. She looked in. It was Eliza, her face, her eyes. But her smile was wrong. And her voice, when she spoke, was far too calm. "Nathan, you shouldn't sleep so deeply. I thought we were in this together." He backed away from the window, bile rising in his throat. His hand shook as he reached for the gun. But her next words froze him. "You had a crush on me, didn't you?" The thing whispered. "Since before the hike, since before Jared died, you would have let me in." It grinned, and the skin around her eyes shivered, like something beneath was pressing too close. Nathan screamed. He ran. Into the woods. Into the thinning dark. He didn't care where he went, only that he left that thing, those things behind. Jared, Eliza, maybe Tom too now. All puppets, all hollowed out and filled with whatever watched from behind the trees. He stumbled into a grove, panting, knees buckling. And there, in the snow, a second Jared. Barely breathing, naked, covered in blood. Alive. Eyes wide. "Please," Jared gasped, voice hoarse. "It took me, it wore me, it." But then, behind him, another Jared stepped into view. Smiling. "I told you," the new one said, "I wear him better." Nathan raised the gun. 1 bullet left. 2 Jareds. And no idea which one still had a soul. To be continued. If you'd like, I can continue with what Nathan chooses, and what the wrong one does next. Continued, they tracked the wolf through the forest, but what they found was wearing their friend's skin and smiling. Nathan didn't move. The 2 Jareds stood before him, one shivering, bloodied and pleading, the other calm, upright, untouched, smiling with too many teeth. "I'm real," the bloodied one gasped. "It held me in the dark. It showed me things I don't want to remember. Please, don't let it kill me again." The other tilted his head, eyes glinting. "He's broken. It fed him nightmares until he begged to die. Do you really think what's left of Jared is something worth saving?" Nathan pointed the gun from one to the other, sweat dripping into his eyes. The smiling one didn't flinch, didn't blink. The real Jared would blink. Nathan pulled the trigger. The smiling one did flinch, but too late. The bullet slammed through its skull. For a moment, it just stood there, grinning, as if nothing had happened. Then its head tilted sideways at an unnatural angle. The grin peeled open, and something inside, something black and long-limbed, pushed against the seams of Jared's skin. It didn't fall. It peeled. Like clothes too tight, Jared's skin sloughed off with a wet, tearing sound. What rose from beneath was not flesh, not bone. A creature of wiry muscle, dark as smoke, eyes like burning coal set into a shifting skull, long fingers, a grin that split too far across its face. "Good choice," it hissed, mockingly. "I was done playing with him anyway." Nathan grabbed the real Jared and ran. They didn't get far. The thing moved like liquid shadow, through the trees, through the dark, always just behind them. It laughed, low, patient. "You made your choice, Nathan, now you'll see where it leads." They reached a frozen stream. Nathan turned, forcing Jared behind him. The gun was empty, useless now. He raised it anyway, as if defiance could hold the thing back. It stepped forward. Then stopped. A second shape emerged from the trees. Staggering, barefoot, bloodied. Eliza, Jared breathed. But her skin hung wrong. It wasn't Eliza. It was the same thing. Another copy, another puppet. And now there were two. The first one, still grinning through Jared's peeled face, laughed. Why wear one skin when I can wear all of you? Nathan didn't run this time. He held Jared's arm tight. Don't look, he whispered, just don't look at them. The creatures circled, crawling over the snow, whispering every secret they'd stolen from their stolen skins. Voices layered, familiar, cruel. You thought about kissing her at the lake, didn't you, Nathan? She saw you watching. You wondered if Jared was weak, if he'd get you all killed. You were right. I am all of you now. Nathan shut his eyes and sang a low hum, the old campfire song Jared used to sing when they were kids. At first, Jared flinched, then he joined in, voice trembling. The things paused. Their smiles twitched. And that's when Nathan remembered, it wasn't the bullets that hurt them. It was the memories they couldn't understand, human memories, love, guilt, songs sung by a fire when you still believed you were safe. The things hissed, shrieked, and vanished into the trees. Morning came like a breath held too long. Nathan and Jared didn't speak. They walked in silence toward the ranger station, past blood, past scattered skin, past the places where something had watched. They didn't talk about the others, not yet. There were more of those things in the woods. They knew that now. And they weren't hunting a wolf anymore. They were hunting something that wore your voice, your face, your memories, until even your friends couldn't tell you from it. But next time? Nathan would be ready. And he wouldn't miss. Want to continue into a sequel where they return to hunt it? Or explore where the creature came from? Sequel, they thought they'd escaped the forest, but the thing followed wearing a new face. 6 months later, Nathan still checked every face for the wrong kind of smile. In the grocery store, on the subway, across the street at night. He knew it was out there, not just in the forest anymore. It had followed. And it had found a new face to wear. They didn't speak of it after the rescue. Jared spent 2 weeks in a psychiatric ward, and Nathan lied his way through every interview. Animal attack, hallucination, starvation psychosis. Only he and Jared knew the truth, it wasn't one creature. It was many. Or it was one that never stayed in one body for long. And it had learned. It wore Jared's skin for a while. Then Eliza's. Then someone else's. Nathan moved to the city. Concrete, cameras, crowds. He thought it would be safer there. He was wrong. The first time he saw it again, it was on a street corner. A man in a faded red hoodie, too still, smiling too much, eyes that didn't blink. A whisper of a familiar voice. Hey, Nathan. The hoodie had been Tom's favorite. Nathan didn't stop walking. He met with Jared once a week in a diner where the lights were too bright and the staff too chatty for anything dark to crawl in. Jared had changed, paler, quieter. Have you seen it? Nathan asked one night, mid-coffee. Jared nodded once. In the mirror. Nathan didn't ask what that meant. Then the murders began. People found with their skin peeled clean, eyes intact, mouths frozen in a smile. The news said cult. Nathan knew better. The forest hadn't let them go. It had just followed. One night, Nathan's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Silence. Then a whisper. Familiar. Wrong. Eliza misses you. He didn't hang up. He couldn't. You're hard to wear, Nathan, the voice continued. So much guilt, but I'll try again soon. Click. Nathan packed. He didn't run this time. He called Jared, told him the plan. There were others like them, survivors of things they couldn't name, people who'd seen smiles that didn't belong on human faces. They'd meet. They'd compare stories. They'd go back. To the forest. To the place where it all began. And this time? They wouldn't hunt the wolf. They'd hunt the thing that smiled with someone else's face. And burn it. To be continued. Next, they returned to the forest to kill it, but it had built a village of faces that looked just like theirs. Want me to continue with that part? Continued, they returned to the forest to kill it, but it had built a village of faces that looked just like theirs. They came back in winter. Nathan, Jared, and 5 others who'd seen what no one should. Cora, whose twin brother had smiled at her after his funeral. Luis, who'd burned down a house and still heard his own voice calling from the ashes. Marla, who couldn't look in a mirror anymore. Dom and Ray, who'd lost a daughter, but sometimes still got birthday cards in her handwriting. Each had heard the whispers. Each had seen a familiar face where it shouldn't be. Each carried weapons. Guns, fire, salt, old things wrapped in cloth and fear. They didn't talk much on the drive-in. They all felt it, the pull, the wrongness. The forest wasn't just trees anymore. It was awake. And it was waiting. The snow began too early. Thick, wet, heavy. By dusk, they reached the trailhead. The woods greeted them in silence. No birds, no wind. Just breath, not theirs, clothes, all around. They lit their torches and moved. Hours in, they found the first structure. It shouldn't have been there. A wooden cabin, rotten and leaning, built from mismatched boards. Some of the timber was etched with names. Their names. Eliza, Tom, Nathan. Each carved as if claimed. Inside was a mirror. Cracked. But the reflections were perfect. Too perfect. Nathan blinked, and for one breathless second, his reflection didn't. By morning, they found more. An entire village hidden deep in the forest, where no GPS worked and compasses spun useless. Every building was wrong, familiar. A copy of Jared's old house, Marla's kitchen, Ray's nursery, all slightly off, crooked, empty, as if someone had tried to rebuild their memories with broken hands. The worst part? They were inhabited. Shapes moved inside, people stepped to the windows. And every single one had their faces. Jared stared at one for too long. The copy smiled, raised its hand, and pressed it to the glass. Blood smeared across the inside. Jared whispered, "It's learning how to be us." Cora lifted her rifle. "Then we teach it how we die." The things didn't attack, not right away. They watched, copied, whispered from dark doorways. Nathan passed one shack and heard himself say, "You can still leave, you know, I would." His own voice, mocking. He didn't answer. He lit a flare and threw it through the door. The scream that came out wasn't his. At sunset, the village woke. The things poured from the buildings. Dozens of them. Each face stolen, stitched, painted on like masks that stretched with every smile. The battle was chaos. Fire, screaming, human and not. Ray burned the nursery. Luis tore through a crowd with salt rounds and wept every time he saw his brother's face. Cora died when 3 of herself tore her apart, all whispering, "We missed you, we missed you." Nathan and Jared reached the heart of the village, a pit surrounded by bone and branches. Inside it writhed. The first one. A creature too large for the hole it crawled from, a mass of faces, hundreds, eyes blinking independently, mouths whispering regrets. It didn't attack. It pleaded. "Stay, we'll be better, we can be you." Jared stepped forward. "I was never me again after you wore my face," he said. "You don't get to be human." He dropped the canister of fire starter into the pit. Nathan lit the match. The screams lasted until sunrise. But when the light came, the village was gone. Just snow, ash, silence. They left the forest. Not all of them. Dom didn't make it out. But the thing was dead. Or, Nathan hoped it was. Because that night, back home, he passed a mirror in the hallway. Stopped. And for just a second, he saw himself in the reflection, wearing Jared's smile. And it was still smiling when he turned away. End. Or, we can take it even further. Want the creature to have survived and escaped into the city again? Or turn this into a full-length horror novel outline? Sequel, The Forest Burned. The creatures died, but one got out wearing Nathan's face. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He sat on the floor of his apartment, lights on, every mirror covered. The others had gone silent. No calls from Jared, no messages from Marla. He tried not to think about what that meant. He tried not to remember the last moment before the fire hit the pit, when he and Jared had locked eyes, and Jared had said nothing, just nodded. But it hadn't been his real nod. Because now, Nathan remembered something terrible. Jared never nodded with his left hand. The morning after the fire, Nathan went to a cafe near his apartment. Old habits, needed normal. The barista smiled. "Hey, Nathan." He frowned. "Do I know you?" She shrugged. "You always get the same drink. Black coffee, no sugar. You were here yesterday." "I wasn't," he said. But she looked confused. "You were." Back home, his key didn't work. Not because it was broken. Because someone had already locked the inside. He knocked, waited. And then the door opened. Nathan stared at himself. Same face, same coat, same scar on the knuckle from the cabin window 6 months ago. The other Nathan smiled. "Hey, I've been waiting." They fought. Or tried to. But it was like fighting a reflection with a memory of every move. The creature wasn't just wearing his face, it was inside it. It knew things Nathan barely remembered. How he flinched when someone raised their hand. What name made him pause? What memory made him hurt? The creature whispered it all as they fought. "Still afraid of fire, aren't you? You couldn't save Eliza. You liked being the one who survived." Nathan set the room on fire. The creature screamed. But it didn't burn. It fled. Out into the streets. Wearing his face. And no one stopped it. Now Nathan is the one hunted. There's a man with his voice opening his bank accounts. Someone with his fingerprints boarding a plane. A version of him visiting Jared's mother. The creature didn't just escape. It replaced him. And now the real Nathan walks the alleys, living in shadows, trying to gather the others, if any are still alive. Because the forest is growing again. Not with trees. But with people. Smiling people. All wearing stolen faces. Next, he hunts the thing that stole his life, but the world has already let it in. Would you like to continue into this final arc, or explore a deeper origin of the face-stealing species? Continued, he hunts the thing that stole his life, but the world has already let it in. Nathan doesn't use his name anymore. It belongs to someone else now. Someone who looks like him. Talks like him. Sleeps in his apartment, kisses the woman he loved, posts pictures of hiking trips with people who are already dead. No one believes the real Nathan. Why would they? He's the crazy one, unshaven, always muttering, never showing his face. Because he knows the truth. The world has already let it in. It started with one shape. One stolen body. But now there are hundreds. Maybe more. It's not just the forest anymore. It's cities, streets, offices, hospitals, homes. They blend in better every day. They mimic pain. They laugh at the right jokes. They know how to bleed, if they must. But none of them blink quite right. And all of them smile. Too much, too long. Nathan hunts them. One at a time. He's learned to tell. They twitch when someone cries. They don't remember pain, they just imitate the reaction. They don't feel memories, they only wear them. So he tests them. A name only a real friend would know. A question no one else would ask. A song they can't finish, because it was never theirs. And when they fail? He burns them. Quickly, quietly. Then he moves on. But now, he's found something worse. A woman followed him last night. Face familiar, posture perfect. Not someone he knew. Someone he almost knew. She sat next to him at a bench in the dark. And whispered, "You're the last one who remembers it's not real." He stared at her. "What's not?" She smiled. And he saw it. The teeth. The stretch of the jaw. The hunger behind the face. And then she said, Reality. They aren't just wearing people. They rewriting the world. History, records, birth certificates, photographs. The more they spread, the more the past begins to bend. People Nathan knew are being erased, not killed, just edited, as if they never were. He checked old videos. Where Jared once stood, there's no one. Where Eliza laughed in a photo, now she's alone, smiling into nothing. They don't just steal faces. They erase the original. And worst of all? Nathan found something on the news. A humanitarian worker rescued from the Amazon. Found after years of disappearance. The camera panned to his face. Nathan froze. Because the man smiled at the reporter. And it was his own smile. The creature hadn't just replaced his life. It was climbing higher. Becoming seen, trusted, followed. The real Nathan sat in a dark motel, watching the screen, the flame of his lighter shaking in his hand. He knew then. He wasn't hunting it anymore. He was waging war against a species. Next, he builds a network of survivors, but the imposters already walk among them. Shall I continue with Nathan forming a last resistance against the smiling ones? Continued, he builds a network of survivors, but the imposters already walk among them. Nathan found them in fragments. A whispered name scratched into a bus stop bench. A post on a dead forum, gone 5 minutes after it was uploaded. A matchbook slid into his pocket by a woman with a glass eye, who vanished into the crowd before he could ask her name. They were out there, other survivors. Others who remembered things that no longer existed. And they were waiting. They met in places the smiling ones avoided, abandoned basements under defunct churches, flooded train tunnels no longer on any map, motels where the power flickered just wrong. He met Mara, who'd watched her parents disappear between blinks, only to have 2 new ones smiling at her from the kitchen. Quan, whose daughter had drawn a picture of a creature with no face wearing her teacher's dress, and then vanished herself. Jonah, who'd lost his wife in a hospital fire, only to see her standing behind a pharmacy counter a year later, smiling like she never left. They all remembered. They all carried burns, not from fire, but from truth. Scars that came with knowing the world wasn't real anymore. Nathan didn't lead them, he never claimed to. But they looked to him anyway. Because he had killed one. And killing them wasn't easy anymore. The creatures had grown smarter. They mimicked trauma now. Learned to flinch. To cry. They stuttered when nervous. They wore bruises like camouflage. You couldn't just watch for the smile anymore. They'd evolved. And some were inside the network. Nathan felt it on the 3rd meeting. A man named Travis shared a story too perfect. Too practiced. He spoke of a wife who vanished in front of him. But when Mara asked what her name was, he hesitated. Only a second. But it was everything. Later, they found Travis alone in the bathroom. Cutting the skin from his own arms. Trying to get out. Something beneath wriggled. And smiled. They couldn't trust anyone now. Even themselves. So Mara developed tests. Memory drills, personal details that shifted slightly, words that caught in the throat. Quan built a machine, a crude EEG scanner, that showed spikes when lies met memory. Jonah kept a blade that burned red when near one of them. Nathan? He trusted none of it. He carried fire. Then, one night, the smiling ones attacked. 5 of them. Each wearing the face of someone from Nathan's past. His old boss. A girl he loved in college. Tom. Eliza. And himself. They moved in perfect unison, no screaming, no shouting, just walking through the warehouse, fire spreading behind them, as if it obeyed their steps. One whispered, "You gathered them like firewood." Another added, "Now we light the match." Only 4 survivors made it out. Nathan. Mara. Quan. And someone new. A teenage boy who claimed he had never smiled in his life. They ran. Started again. Different city, different name, no tech, no phone, no patterns. But Nathan knew. They were already in. They wore police uniforms, clergy collars, children's faces. They were at the top and the bottom, whispering in boardrooms, laughing on playgrounds. And somewhere, one wore a president's skin. Next, he plans one last broadcast to expose the truth, but the voice reading his message is already not his own. Shall we keep going? It's building toward a final resistance or global assimilation, your choice. Continued, he plans one last broadcast to expose the truth, but the voice reading his message is already not his own. The plan was desperate. A final shot before the world forgot it had ever been human. Nathan and the survivors had hijacked a satellite uplink station hidden in the hills of what used to be Nevada. It had once been used to bounce emergency signals around the globe. Now it would carry one message, Nathan's voice, uncensored, raw, and real. Not on the internet. Not on social media. Those channels were already theirs. This would go out over the old waves, ham, shortband, pirate radio frequencies, analog noise they couldn't fully scrub. It would reach those who still listened to the hiss beneath the silence. If they couldn't stop the invasion, maybe they could wake up the sleeping. Nathan sat before the mic. The others stood watch. The boy, his name was Micah, barely 16, watched the monitors. Mara stood by the power feed with a deadman's switch. Quan rigged the building with thermite and timers. They'd only have 10 minutes once the signal went live. 10 minutes to remind the world what a real human sounded like. 10 minutes before the smiling ones found them. Nathan leaned in. Micah gave the nod. The red light blinked. And he spoke. He told the world about the thing in the forest. The faces it wore. The friends it hollowed out and used like puppets. He told them how the creatures bled, how they feared fire, not the burning, but the meaning. He begged anyone listening to stop trusting photographs. To stop believing memories that came too easy. He told them to watch the smiles, count the teeth. Listen for voices that repeated themselves too perfectly. He told them where to meet, a final gathering, one last camp, in the cold places of the world where the creatures still hesitated. He ended the message with a phrase only true survivors would know. I remember Eliza. She blinked twice before she smiled. He leaned back, heart pounding. The others were silent. The light on the mic still blinked. Cut the feed, Nathan said. We're done. But Micah didn't move. He just stared. The audio playback buzzed on the speaker beside them. And Nathan heard himself. Only it wasn't quite him. His words were wrong. His tone was perfect. His voice was off. Too smooth. Too practiced. Every breath perfectly timed. And at the end, the voice added a line Nathan had never said. They're lying. The ones who run. Smile when you see them, and they'll smile back. We're already safe. Mara threw the switch. Static filled the room. Micah screamed as Quan ripped out the power core. Nathan stared at the speaker as the voice echoed again. His voice. Perfect. Artificial. Broadcasting everywhere. Somewhere out there, people would hear that message. And they wouldn't run. They'd open their doors. They'd smile back. And it would be over. Later that night, Nathan asked Mara how the broadcast had been hijacked. She just looked at him and said, We recorded it live, Nathan. A pause. No one else in the room spoke. Mara took a step back. You were alone at the mic. Next, they burn what's left and go underground, but the last safe camp is already repeating their names in their own voices. Would you like to continue into the final act? Or pause here for a novel outline/cinematic adaptation structure?